Our children need so much support, and we need a map so that we can find our way with mindfulness, attunement, play, and self-care. So today we're meeting with Vicky Pellowe. Hi, Vicky. Vicky is the founder and director of the FIFO Family Project. This is an independent not-for-profit organisation providing crucial support for fly-in, fly-out families, also called FIFO, across Australia's resource sectors. Vicky draws on her own FIFO career experience, and she established the FIFO Family Project to address the unique challenges these workers and their families face, with a focus on mental health, education and community connection. Under her leadership, the organisation delivers evidence-based programs that build mental health resilience, provide practical resources and create sustainable support networks. Through partnerships with industry leaders and health professionals, Vicky has developed the FIFO Family Project into a trusted advocate for positive change in Australia's FIFO community. And I can attest to that because Miralinga's been really connected with you for a while, and it's just amazing what you're doing. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's lovely to have you here. We would love to start by asking you, how you got here. What's led you to this? We were just talking before we recorded about a few things that have gotten in the way this week, but what supported you to get to where you are, and what's been your journey to head up this amazing organisation that supports families?
So I guess it started before I realised it started in that respect. I was a FIFO worker for 6 years, and my husband was also a FIFO worker, not always on the same project or the same roster. So we often joked that we saw each other more at camp when we finally got on the same project than we did at home. But both of us had access to a lot of information, a lot of community, a lot of support, a lot of education, particularly around mental health, which was my passion. And I did a lot of work with that, the FIFO mental health stuff when I worked on site. And then became pregnant and worked FIFO up until 34 weeks pregnant when no more PPE fit, and my site manager was very nervous. So no more flying for me. And decided in that case that I would then obviously come back to Perth. I was a contractor, so didn't have any parental leave, didn't have any job to go back to because my project was finishing up. But we decided that my husband would still remain FIFO, so remain in the FIFO industry. And typical Vicky, I'm very, I like information and I like to be prepared and I like to be able to, get to find the information that is relevant to us. So I looked for FIFO parents or what to do with a newborn and a FIFO husband, and there just wasn't anything. And I was really surprised because we'd never been the family. We'd both always been the worker. So we'd both always had access to that support and information. That I was genuinely shocked that there was nothing for families. So I sort of had the thought that I would do something in this space from when I had my daughter, but I always, it's the age-old adage of I'll do something when I have time, and I never have time. So I now have 2 children, and last year, 2024, I decided to get stuck in really and set up our own not-for-profit, and started with the community connection pillar. So we have a few different pillars and values that we are founded upon, but the first one was community connection, and that's where Miralinga came in, and the wonderful Susie who suggested, well, why don't you have the meetups at Miralinga venues? And then it all went from there.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's so important, isn't it, for families to feel that community connection.
100%.
So I'm curious about the pillars. What are the other pillars of the organisation?
So the foundational pillar was always that community connection, that network, reducing isolation, bringing families and children together in a supportive and non-judgmental space, because quite often families, there's still a lot of stigma attached to FIFO families and choosing to live this lifestyle. So mothers with young children have sort of told the same story in their own words, but I'm summarising. A theme that comes up a lot is that if they go to traditional play groups or traditional mothers groups, they quite often receive comments like, oh, my partner could never leave us, or we could never be a FIFO family. You're basically a single parent. What's the point? You're only in it for the money. Some really not kind and not true for a lot of families. But it is that stigma and judgment that FIFO families do face. So we wanted to provide a space where it was completely judgment-free, that shared lived experience and support from a sort of solution focus within their peers. So they come along and they meet other FIFO families or other FIFO kids, and they don't work on the same site, quite often they have the same roster, but it doesn't matter. They can all sort of support each other and really reduce that isolation and build their connection. So that's worked really well. I'm really proud of that first year that we've got under our belts with that. And the second pillar is education and information. So for me, community is really important to be able to build that network, but then we need to actually work on how are we going to overcome some of these challenges that we know exist? How are we going to support ourselves to make this lifestyle sustainable and successful for every member of the FIFO family? Because a lot of the mental health support is aimed at the worker on site, but there is very little for the family. One really interesting thing I found when I was researching for some grant applications around education information grants, there's a statistic that most people will have seen in the media or heard just around, which is 1 in 3 FIFO workers suffer from high psychological distress. So mental health challenges. There's also high suicide rates in the industry as well. But when I was reading the report that says about the 1 in 3 FIFO workers, I had never read the actual report before, but I'd seen the statistic everywhere. And I was really shocked because you'll read that line, 1 in 3 FIFO workers suffers from high psychological distress. And then the second line under that says, and 1 in 3 partners of FIFO workers also suffer from high psychological distress. And not once had I ever heard that. And I was so surprised. I read it a few times and I read the rest of the report and I thought, why are we not doing anything about this? Why are we not supporting with education, information, training, support? I saw so many partners of FIFO workers going to Facebook for advice, and we can't have that as the solution. We need to have the lived experience combined with professional expertise if we're really going to make a difference, and that's where the education and information pillar comes in. So this year that sort of came about with the FIFO New Parents Guide and with great support from the WA Department of Communities. And the third pillar, which will be next year, is the wellbeing pillar. So we're going to expand into more of a FIFO family wellbeing program, which can be embedded within corporations who have a FIFO network and FIFO employees so that we can provide that proactive, preventative mental health support.
Amazing. Yeah. I can see you are a big picture thinker. Amazing. So I guess drilling down in a way while also maintaining that strategic view, can you share a map or a set of ideas that you've found helpful navigating this life? I mean, this podcast is about mindfulness, attunement, play and self-care, so it might fit in there somewhere, but just a map for applying to parenting with this specific circumstance, I guess, that you've found really helpful for yourself or maybe the parents that you're working with?
Absolutely. And I think that's where the FIFO New Parents Guide really came from. So we did 42 interviews with FIFO workers, FIFO families, child health nurses, yourself, all sorts of key stakeholders with in that sort of parenting space for FIFO families. And some of the main themes that came out of that, which I again look to do more in the future with, but it is that lack of understanding, the lack of really comprehending what having a FIFO parent looks like and having to work it out as you go along, trial and error. Basically, when the thing hits the fan, that's when you find out that this isn't working. And that's really stressful for a lot of families, particularly new parents and particularly first-time parents.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know that's stressful with any family situation. Generally, it's a huge learning curve and a massive life-changing scenario for any family. But if you add in the dynamic of a FIFO parent onto that, you're managing things like navigating relationship roles when one comes and goes, be that every week or every few weeks or every month. It depends on the roster. So you're having to manage that relationship, that connection to your romantic relationship, but also now your child and your family relationship as a unit. You're having to navigate that from a distance using technology, but also then still maintaining that at home. And then when the parent returns, what does that look like for a new family unit? And then when it goes again. So one of the biggest things that I find, and I talk to new parents about, particularly first-time new parents, is having those conversations early and making a plan, which is very unsexy. You used to come back on R&R and have all this freedom and, go do all these wonderful things because you were on R&R, and you could. That was one of the benefits of living a FIFO lifestyle, is that when they were home fully.
Yeah.
And you had that flexibility. And as a FIFO partner, quite often you had coping mechanisms to make that lifestyle okay when they weren't there. You went to work, you had adult interaction at work, you had your own career, maybe you went to the gym, maybe you had hobbies, you'd see friends on the weekends. And then when you transition to being a FIFO family with a little baby at home, a lot of families really don't realise that a lot of those coping mechanisms are taken away, or they look different.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be so dark and scary that they're just not there anymore.
No,
but they look different.
There's big changes.
Yeah. So a lot of families feel like they don't cope where they did before, and it's very confronting because they're having to deal with so much change, but still trying to desperately hold on to things that had worked for them before, but it just might not be an option for them. So self-care is a really big one when we're talking about FIFO families in general, but particularly in that new parent sort of first few months or first few years space, because it will look different.
Yeah. What works for you for self-care?
I will be the first to say that is something that I struggle with priorities, and I absolutely...
2 children and a
2 children, 3 jobs and a FIFO husband mean that self-care is very small and looks incredibly different for me now. Like, my self-care used to be based on a 4 weeks on, 4 weeks off roster. I used to have a lot of time for self-care, and I definitely do not anymore. But it comes down to, again, it's that really unsexy planning. Where everybody would love to have this more flexibility, but it's about when my husband, when we know that we've got R&R, literally sitting down and saying, right, we've got this to do here, that drop off, that kid's there, I'm here, I've got that meeting, you've got that appointment, right, you see that half an hour in there? I'm going to go lie down in a dark room and listen to a meditation. So it is about
that intentionality.
And then being proactive about it and literally scheduling it in, which again, not fun.
I think you're right. Life seeps in otherwise, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. And especially on R&R, when you do want to make the most of your time with your family, because you know that you are going to have periods of separation when you're not available to them as well. So there's that almost added sort of pressure sometimes for families that we've got to make it, the best, and we've got to make every minute quality time. And it is such a privilege to be able to have that quality time together. Most families don't have the privilege of having a week at a time, solid parenting time together. But that comes with negotiation, that comes with expectations versus reality we talk about a lot. So being able to really have those open conversations and communications and work out what's going to work for everybody, and a whole new layer of compromise that you never had before. That definitely is a big one for when families have children with a FIFO partner.
Yeah. You and I were talking earlier about night shift.
Yeah. Favourite of night shift.
How does that factor in, do you find? Because it's not something I'd thought about before.
Same. Neither.
So, yeah, how do you handle it?
Not well, mostly.
So, and maybe you should explain, just in case people, people generally know what night shift is, but on a FIFO roster, what does that mean?
Sure. I also think, again, it's another one of these things that families aren't prepared for, because they're not taught in inductions, they're not given any advice, they're not given any education. So it's a real point of contention for a lot of families because there is a lack of understanding. So night shift, when you're on a FIFO roster, can look different for different roles, but generally, in our context anyway, we work an 8 and 6. So my husband will work a week of days, 6 days off on R&R, and then a week of nights, and then 6 days off on R&R. So when he comes off of nights, and this is relevant for other shift workers in Perth as well who work nights, it's definitely not sort of only FIFO workers who experience this, but as a night shift in general, when they come back, they'll have worked. So for argument's sake, my husband worked Tuesday night. He then flew out of work Wednesday morning and then gets home around about lunchtime. So he's been awake, since about 3 o'clock the night before. We're fortunate that we live in Perth. I know many families who come off night shift and then have to commute to different states or to down southwest. That, again, a whole new layer of complexity. But they need to sleep. They need to rest to be able to recalibrate their body clock, essentially, in order to then be present and be available on R&R. But that is really tricky for multiple reasons, especially if you've got young kids, because when their parent's back, they expect their parent to be back. And we live in a very small house, very noisy wooden floors. Yeah. And we're sort of saying, no, you can't, Daddy's asleep. No, you can't, Daddy's asleep. And they're really struggling with that. But Daddy's here, so I should be able to see him. And on the flip side, and I've always been an advocate, I'm very, very honest about the FIFO lifestyle. I do give my experiences, but there are many other families who have very multiple different experiences in this space as well. And when I talk about sort of my community, it's generally themes that I hear regularly coming up. But I have also got to the point where I've been really tired when I've been up all night with the kids.
Yeah, night shift.
Shift. I've had to go to work the next day. I don't get R&Rs anymore. Yeah. And he's come home off a night shift and I have let him sleep, and then the next day he's been like, no, I'm tired. I'm like, mate, I am tired too. And then you get into the who's more tired, which never wins. And I always say that, but we are human. Yeah. And we are tired humans who may not be functioning completely correctly. Yeah. So I think it's also, it's just a bit of a challenge when you have got those young children and night shift to be able to have those conversations early, to make those agreements as a family, like what's going to work. For some families, the partners don't come home. They go and stay at a friend's or a hotel or whatever for that first night to get one solid night's sleep in, and then they come back when they're rested and ready. Yeah. Now, that works really well for some families. Other families are like, nope, I want to go straight home. Cool, no problem. But it's being mindful that you have to look after yourself. It's the age-old, like, put your oxygen mask on first. Yeah. And Brené Brown talks about it really well when she's talked about having conversations with her husband around, you're never going to be 50-50, particularly in a FIFO relationship. That just doesn't work. So coming home and saying, right, I've got 10% left in the tank, and the other one going, oh, I've got 15 today, but tomorrow's going to be a lot less. Okay, cool. You do what you need to do today, and then tomorrow this is what so it's having that negotiation with the understanding that everybody is running on empty, but some people will have just that 1% more in the tank to keep that empty today, and then tomorrow it has to be the flip. So it's about really doing what's right for your family. There is no one size fits all. I wish there was. I wish I could just wave a magic wand and go, this roster, that routine. But it's really about compromise and communication and ignoring all the other noise, because the other thing with FIFO families and any family, any new parent, is there's so much noise, much information, so many shoulds and woulds and coulds and ifs and buts and all the above. And even this guide that we've got, the FIFO New Parents Guide, if you read, some of those checklists or some of those questions or some of those suggestions and you go, that's not going to work for my family, cool, don't do it. Yeah. There is absolutely nothing wrong with knowing fully what's going to work for your family. The only thing I would say is if what you're doing is stressful and it's not working,
experiment.
Try. Yeah. Try some other things, see what works.
Yeah. So if parents listening in, whether they're FIFO families or not, are feeling a little lost, what's been like a true north point for you, something you've kind of held on to when things are overwhelming?
I think there's two. One, nothing lasts forever. Particularly feel that very, very strongly with my second, because with my daughter, I actually had postnatal depression, but it wasn't diagnosed until 5 or 6 months because I just thought FIFO life was hard.
Yeah.
I just thought, I'm finding this really hard because I have a FIFO parent, and I didn't know any different. And with the second, my son, I think for me anyway, there was that comfort of having the knowledge that nothing lasts forever. When you're in it that first time, you think, oh my God, is this ever going to end? Particularly when you're a first-time mum, in my instance, and you are 24/7. There's nobody to come in at 5 p.m. and go, high five, babe, go for a walk around the block, here I'll hold the baby.
Yeah.
It is all, the days and nights roll into one.
Yeah.
And you do sort of think, where am I?
Yeah.
What's going on here? And you don't know if it's ever going to end. Whereas with the second one, you've got that kind of like lived experience, if you will, or that living proof of that first little child as they are now, that stages do come and go and it does change. Yeah. It's not necessarily going to be easy or harder. It's just going to be different, and it does change. So I think that's something I try and hold on to, like that change will come, nothing lasts forever, and also do less.
I love that one. And that's been my mantra lately, is lighten the load.
Do less. From somebody who is, a very...
I can see you're a do more kind of girl.
I'm a do more kind of girl, and I always have been. I've been very, very independent, very proactive in my career, very proud of my career up until then having my daughter, and I couldn't continue my career anymore. So that looked different for me also. But this notion of... particularly when you are a solo parent for a period of time, I'm very intentional with that language that I use, that we are not single parents, because that's another misconception. Single parents are absolute heroes in my eyes. We are different. We solo parent for a period of time, and then we parent as a family unit. So we have different challenges, and I'm just mindful of that language. But when you are a solo parent for a period of time, do less. Do whatever you need to do to be okay. Do whatever you need to do for your children to be okay. My children have breakfast for dinner at least once a week when my husband's away. Potentially more if it's been a really busy week. They are fed. They are happy. They are human. They are okay.
There's multiple vitamins and minerals in there.
Absolutely. Yes, it's different breakfast most days. We mix it up. But, there's eggs. Eggs are good. But it's that taking that pressure off yourself and do less. The big thing I see where families find it really hard, and predominantly with older children at this stage, but when they set their lives up for a two-parent household, including drop-offs, pickups, schools, activities, work, all the above, and then they have a FIFO parent.
Yeah.
So that you've got one person trying to hold it all together for a two-people strategy, essentially. Set yourself up for a solo parent household so that it is sustainable when there is only one of you. When there are two of you, it's a bonus.
Extra resourcing.
100%. That's where it becomes really difficult. And there are families who say, no, I can do it because I have, Nana who can pick up. I have my neighbour who can drop off. I have a million bells and whistles and levers, which mean that it still works when he's not here. Great. Do that. Like, if it works for you, keep doing that. I'm not saying to anybody that you should do less if you're doing well on what you're doing. But the biggest thing I find is trying to maintain that two-parent household with a period of one parent who then feels that cycle of burnout, that cycle of resentment.
Really
it can really start to stretch them, and then it becomes unsustainable for both parents, but particularly the one at home.
Thank you. I think there's some really lovely practical ways of seeing that situation that are really helpful for parents in all sorts of different situations. Absolutely. I would love to ask how parents can find out more about the New Parents FIFO Guide, and also how they can get in touch with you if they've got any questions or learn more about the organisation.
Yeah, great. So the FIFO New Parents Guide is, as I mentioned earlier, supported with funding from the WA Department of Communities, which we're very grateful for. And it is available from our website, www.thefifofamilyproject.com.au. That's quite long. I'll let you put a link in the notes. And the guide is free to download. And this is something I'm very passionate about, that it is accessible for all. It doesn't matter who you work for. It doesn't matter if you're a partner at home or a parent on site. That guide is for everybody in the FIFO family. So we've had, nanas and granddads download it and go, this is really helpful.
Great.
It is accessible to everybody because it is online to download. And we also have a FIFO New Parents Guide Professionals Edition. So if you are a healthcare worker, HR supervisor, parental services, community services, mental health, there is a professionals guide for supporting FIFO families. And again, that's free to download from our website. So definitely worth checking those out because there's an absolute wealth of knowledge. And whilst it is information and information is good, it's actually action. So there's checklists, there's questions you can ask, there's resources that you can refer to. It is very much that proactive focus, which I talked about earlier. We also have thanks to Miralinga, the community meetups, which we hold twice a month. So we have one at Miralinga in Hilton, south of the river, and one at Miralinga in Kingsley, north of the river. And they are on a Sunday morning, 9 till 11, because that is the hardest time for FIFO families because no shops are open and everybody else is home with their home families. So we get together. They are very informal. They are at the wonderful centres, which are family friendly. So we have a fully fenced playground, which if you have a runner like I do, you'll appreciate that. They are wonderful centres and they are fabulous for our families. We get comments all the time on how great they are. So they're free to attend. They are all on Eventbrite, so all our dates are on Eventbrite. And I will note that next year we're also going to be expanding and it will look a little bit different. So the Miralinga centres will always be there, the Hilton and the Kingsley one. But we are going to be expanding because we get contacted all the time from families, and we have families travelling over an hour to come to these meetups, which is wonderful that they get the opportunity to meet and connect with other families. But my goal and my premise was always to connect with the local community and to really network with neighbours and friends who you can say, I'm having a really hard day. Can we go to the park? Yeah, I'll be there in 5. That sort of connection. So next year I have 2 beautiful community coordinators who have volunteered to come and help me. And they are going to be starting up peer-led meetups in parks and cafes in other areas. So we're looking at Secret Harbour, Yanchep, High Wycombe, and then going further down to sort of Busselton, Albany, and further up to sort of Broome. So
amazing.
There will be more meetups available in local areas from next year and other states, because I do get all these emails from South Australia and Queensland saying, can we have meetups over here as well? And absolutely, yes, you are definitely on the plan.
Expansion, yeah.
Yes.
Amazing.
And I think for me, the reason it's taken me so long is because I am the only one who has been running this up until now. I do now have some volunteers who are going to help me with the North of the River one and the community coordinators, but I wanted to set this up sustainably. So the groups will be peer-led by FIFO families in their local area, but they will be trained by us to be able to be that resource of connection to services in the area for families. So almost like a family liaison kind of officer role, because it's really important for me, as it's come up at Hilton and Kingsley as well, that we are able to connect families with support in their local communities. So it will be it's in the works, doing all the background that comes with that for the onboarding and training and everything. But yeah, the premise is to get it out there as far and wide, because FIFO families are all over Australia and all over the world. But, yeah.
And I'm sure I speak on behalf of lots of the families all of the families that you've worked with in saying thank you, because it's a huge amount of work with a 6 and a 3-year-old. What did you say? 3 jobs?
3 jobs, yeah. 3 part-time jobs, not full-time jobs.
Well, I always say a child is a full-time job, so you've kind of got 5 there.
Yeah.
Thank you for everything you're doing. You're a real powerhouse, and I'm really grateful for everything you're doing to support FIFO families and families generally. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to Miralinga for being an amazing community support in general, but also to the FIFO Family Project right from the start. I really, really know that we wouldn't be where we are without you guys.
Yeah, we love supporting you. It's been a great connection. Thanks, Vicky. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
This podcast is produced by Miralinga, thanks to funding from Healthway. I'm Belinda Smith, Manager of Parenting Services at Miralinga. If you'd like to know more, you can visit our website, www.miralinga.org.au, or if you'd like to get in touch, send us an email, parenting@miralinga.org.au, or visit us on socials.